All right, let's just dive right into this explainer. Today, we're exploring a primal, completely universal fear, that terrifying vulnerability of being targeted in the exact place you're supposed to feel the most secure. We're going to break down 3 incredibly chilling firsthand accounts of home invasions and stalkers. And honestly, these stories really highlight the psychological trauma caused by unwanted surveillance, and they show us exactly what happens when that boundary between safety and the dark, unseen outside is just shattered.
So have you ever felt like you're being watched? Think about that for a second. If you're holding your phone right now, sitting all alone in a quiet room, think about that heavy, claustrophobic sensation. You know, the one, that sudden prickle on the back of your neck. Well, in the stories we're unpacking today, that feeling is absolutely not just paranoia. It's actually a biological alarm system. It's wild how our brains can process these hidden threats before we can even put them into words. This quote right here, "It was like my body sensed something my brain couldn't see," brilliantly illustrates that exact phenomenon. One of the survivors from our source material described their fight or flight response just like that. And honestly, human intuition is a core theme we are going to see across all 3 of these cases. Your brain is literally recognizing a pattern of danger in the shadows way before your eyes even focus on the threat. Keep that in mind as we jump into our very first encounter. Encounter 1, the suburbs. It begins with the 12-year-old boy left completely alone for the evening in a house he's lived in his entire life.
So, the turning point in this first case happens right at the front door. The boy is just chilling, playing James Bond on his PS2, and he orders a pizza from Gianni's Pizzeria. He hands over a $20 bill, tips the driver $4, but the driver, this unkempt guy with a long beard and a black trucker hat, he looks right past the kid into the empty house and asks, "You alone here?" The boy, trying to be polite but definitely caught off guard, mentions his parents are on their way home. It's a tiny slip of information, sure, but it triggers an absolute nightmare.
Fast forward to 11 p.m., and the doorbell rings again. A voice outside is begging for help to use a phone. Now the boy sensibly refuses to open the door and bolts upstairs, calling his mom's cell from his parents' bedroom. His mom immediately realizes the danger and uses his dad's phone from the restaurant they're at to call the police. And while this kid is hiding under his parents' bed, things escalate fast. The backyard gate clicks open. Heavy footsteps start roaming the downstairs floorboards. Then, slowly, they climb the stairs. Finally, the boy watches in just dead silence as the doorknob to the bedroom he's hiding in is pressed down, again and again.
Eventually, the police burst in and secure the house, but they find it pretty terrifying oversight. The intruder didn't force a door. They had actually slipped through an unlatched sliding window in the back. Now, what makes this unsolved case so haunting is what happened after. The family actually went down to Gianni's Pizzeria to confront the driver, but the manager confirmed that the guy working that night, a guy named Phil, looked absolutely nothing like the creepy man who delivered the pizza. Someone completely different was at that door.
Okay, let's shift gears to Encounter 2, the glass. If the first story was all about suburban vulnerability, this one is about extreme isolation. Picture this, a massive, custom-built dream home sitting deep in the backcountry of North Idaho. 0 neighbors. The property backs directly up to dense national parkland. The teenager living there was just watching Gladiator in his basement theater when that sudden visceral fight-or-flight feeling just slammed into him. He had no idea why, but he felt totally exposed. After his girlfriend drove home, he goes back downstairs to turn off the lights. As the room goes dark, he looks at the glass door facing the woods and sees, well, a filthy, wild-haired man staring in from the pitch-black woods, wearing this deranged smile, just gently tapping a knife against the window pane.
And this was not a one-off event. For weeks, the teen was tormented by these metallic tapping sounds echoing all the way up to his second-story bedroom at 3 a.m. But it wasn't until the dead of winter that the true scope of this stalking came to light. While home alone, the teen heard this heavy, deliberate crunching in the snow outside. The next morning, he found this. Fresh human footprints hadn't just walked up to the house, they had circled the entire perimeter, stopping to look into every single window. The guy was actively hunting for him.
The whole thing finally broke in a huge standoff. Armed with a shotgun his parents had left him, the teen stepped right out onto his second-story balcony to confront the tapping once and for all. First, he hits the fog lights, which lights up the smiling man holding the knife. When the intruder absolutely refused to break eye contact or back down, the teen fired a booming warning shot right into the air. And just to guarantee the message was received, he ran downstairs, threw open the door, and unleashed his massive, highly protective Rottweiler into the woods. That finally ended the reign of terror for good.
Now we arrive at Encounter 3, the cabin. 6 college students, spring break of 2022. You'd think there's safety in numbers, right?
They were totally expecting a fun trip with loud music and friends, but the reality? A GPS that completely cut out, a dirt road shrouded in dense trees, and a rundown cabin that smelled like wet wood. Even the owner gave them this bizarre, cryptic warning over the phone, telling them to stay away from the old stuff deep in the woods. When the sun went down, the darkness outside was just absolute, pressing in with this heavy, really unnatural silence.
So on the very first night, the narrator, who was sleeping in a ground floor room, wakes up completely paralyzed at 4:15 a.m. But it wasn't a metallic scrape this time. It was the soft, deliberate sound of bare fingers on the glass. Tap, tap, tap.
He looks over and sees an absolute nightmare right outside his window. A shirtless man with wide, unblinking eyes and pale skin was pressed right up against the glass, literally just breathing on it and watching him. The group somehow managed to scare the guy off temporarily, but the next morning they found bare human footprints circling the entire cabin. And the craziest part? Those footprints even led up to the second-story shower window. Logic definitely dictates they should have packed up and left right then and there, but they decided to stay for night 2.
And that decision led to this horrifying moment at 3:30 a.m. One of the friends goes to get a glass of water and just freezes in the hallway. Because the man from the woods was no longer outside. He was standing right there in their kitchen. He was entirely naked, his back completely covered in raw, bleeding scratches from the woods, and he was just slowly swaying back and forth right in front of the refrigerator.
The whole group panicked, obviously. They armed themselves with whatever they could grab, a pocket knife, a fire poker, a broken chair leg. They flicked on the main lights, fully ready for a fight, but the man was just gone. And the most chilling detail of all? The back door was wide open, but it hadn't been forced or broken. He had literally just walked right in. Needless to say, they grabbed their keys and phones and fled straight into the pitch-black woods in their cars.
When they finally got cell service and met up with a local deputy at a diner, they got absolutely zero comfort. The deputy was completely unfazed. He just nonchalantly mentions they have trouble with folks squatting in those woods who, aren't right in the head. He even seemed to know the shady cabin owner. And just days later, the cabin listing was mysteriously wiped from the internet entirely. The group never got an answer, and they sure didn't get their deposit back.
So let's move on to trusting your intuition. What do these 3 harrowing encounters actually teach us?
These takeaways pretty much distill everything we've learned. First, never ever broadcast your isolation to a stranger, whether it's a suspicious delivery driver or someone knocking at your door. Second, realize that geographical isolation, like a deep woods cabin or a remote estate in Idaho, really strips away your social safety net. Third, consistently secure every single entry point. A locked door means absolutely nothing if a sliding back window is left ajar. And most importantly, always trust your fight or flight instincts. If your body is screaming at you that you're being watched, listen to it.
I really want to leave you with this final thought to take away from our explainer today. We build our homes to keep the elements out, but sometimes it's not the elements we need to be worried about. So the next time you look out a window into the pitch black and the woods are totally silent, ask yourself, what might be looking back? Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive. Stay safe, trust your gut, and we'll see you in the next explainer.